Well, amen. I'm going to invite those who are on our panel to come forward if you would, and welcome this evening. We are going to celebrate 175 years as a church family, and so as we've invited, I'm excited about that enthusiasm. That's good. History is interesting. Rick, have a seat right here. History is really neat. It's obviously a lot of things that have happened over those years, and a lot of stories to tell, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. I mean, that's what history is all about. But as we think about it from the context of a church, really history in general, but for sure a local church, when you think of history, it's let's break the word into two parts, his story. The history of a local church is the story of the Lord Jesus Christ and him working in power through his people. And I think if we look back through our history, that's exactly what you see happening in his church, is that he has worked in power through his people, and they've submitted to him and yielded to his word and followed it with their lives. He's done incredible things. And so we have a great history, a great heritage, great legacy as Red Lane Baptist Church right here in this county of Powhatan, which we're all Virginians, and so everything in Virginia is old, and we have an old, rich heritage. And old is a good thing, right?
It is.
It is good.
Some people are older than others, but it's still good for them.
All right. Well, I'm going to introduce...
I'm glad he looked at you, Rick, when he said old.
I'm not calling you old, Rick. But if the shoe fits, you might wear it.
I will wear it. Pride.
Let me introduce who are on our panel. I'm sure most of you know everyone up here, but if you look down here to my right to the end, that's Steve Bradshaw. Steve and his wife Jan have been members for a number of years. I'll let you guys tell kind of your story in just a minute. Next to him is James Ambrose. James and his wife Christine have been a part of our church for a handful of 4 years or so. And Gloria, and then of course Joe and her have been around for a long time. And then Tommy Mann and his wife Kay. Rick Reams is right here, and then Sarah Duffer is next to him, and then Miss Nancy, and of course she's married to Dickie, and I'm going to let them tell their stories as well. So that's really the first question, the kind of way we want to do this, and I want you guys to watch and enjoy kind of the cross back and forth type of conversation, but
can't tell all the stories.
we can't be here all night.
No, but some of you don't want to hear.
Shouldn't hear.
So I may ask a question to a certain person. Feel free to kind of jump in. You want to add to that story, especially Tommy and Nancy and Rick, who've been here obviously the longest, and in many ways grew up in this church, if you didn't grow up in this church. And so the first question is this, just kind of what brought you to Red Lane? How long have you been attending? And Tommy, I'm going to start with you, if you would kind of begin that.
Well, I started attending this church when I was 2 weeks old. Mother and Dad brought me when I was 2 weeks old, and I've been here ever since. Whether that's good or bad, but it's, when we think about, I heard people last week saying, wonder why people don't come to church anymore. Did they get out of the habit? Well, there's no such thing as a habit to come to church. Either you come because you want to worship God and be a part, and I'm thankful for Mom and Dad for bringing me here. I didn't know I was here when I was 2 weeks old, but anyway, going up in the church and just seeing all the people, and I want to say, Steve, when you pointed to these pictures on the bottom of the folder, they're not charter members. Rick and Nancy and myself are in that picture. I was 9 and 10 years old, but several of us in this congregation did, and several of us were in that picture that you see on your thing. But going up to the church and just see the different people that have influenced you in life, like Mr. Goodwin, Rick's grandmother, Miss Myra Reams, Ira Carter. If you didn't get to know Ira Carter, you missed a jewel. And I don't know if the family that bought Ira's home had been attending church here the last month or so. I don't know if they're here today or not. But let me relate a story about Ira real quick, and then I'll pass it on to someone else. He was our outreach person in the church for years. And come to business meeting, you did not want to be the person that followed Ira's report. You wanted to give your report first. Because if you followed Ira, you felt like you wanted to find a hole and jump in. Because Ira, when he gave his report, 35 to 40 visits a month, so many hospital visits, so many cards sent, and so and this it wasn't for show. That's Ira's heart. So you didn't want to be behind Ira because you said, "Well, I made one visit." You would feel so bad. But Ira was just a great guy. And one other thing on Ira, one of our sweetheart banquets. We had sweetheart banquets here for about 20 years to honor a couple. And one year, Ira was about 5'6", 5'7", and weighed 85 pounds if he was wet. And he played the part of Muhammad Ali in one of our sweetheart banquets. He had black leggings on, boxer shorts with hearts, and he played the part. He just put his heart and soul in everything. He was just a joy to know, and I'm just thankful that I knew him, and I know Gloria knew him, and Rick and Nancy, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Cool. Nancy, same question to you, but I know you and your brother Ted grew up in the church, so just kind of what brought you to the church, and how long have you been a part of Red Lane family?
Well, I wasn't quite born in the church like Tommy was, but is this on?
It is. Just hold it up close.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I came here from Kentucky when I was just about 3 years old, and I think that we were 7 years old. I think we had been to school when Tommy Mann's mom and dad came to visit us and tried to ask us to come to church, and that was why we came. We had no automobile or anything, so I think the children, 3 or 4 of us did, my brother there. We walked from the Capeway Road up here to church every Sunday. And then as we got older, some of the other members, Charlie Mann, you remember, and his wife and different ones took turns coming to our house to bring us to Sunday school. So that's how we started, and counting up, I think that I've been here 77 years.
That's awesome. James, you're not quite that old, or young, I mean, but what brought you and your wife and your family here, and how long has it been? I think you said 4 years all ago.
We've been here about 4 years. I think what really brought us here, we tried pretty much every church in Powhatan at the time. We moved back from Virginia Beach to here when Christine was pregnant with Raymond, and we had a house here previously, so we moved back into that house. I think when Raylan was born, I had no time to actually cut grass, so I still don't have time to cut grass, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so we actually, I think Christine put an ad out on Facebook or something asking for help for someone to cut grass, and Jennifer Moffitt responded, and Ben came by to cut the grass, and she started telling us about Red Lane and everything about it, so we decided, well, let's just go back and give it a try. So I think we sat in the back. We already knew a couple families here, which was really good. Hospitality team was great. Made us feel right at home, and then as we were actually leaving one Sunday, we actually had a family come by and say, hey, you remember us from Swift Creek Baptist? We're like, yeah. So they, hey, you need to come to our small group. So we went to small group, and we've really been here ever since. And really what kind of keeps us here is the great relationships we've already built and established with a lot of friends. Preaching the gospel is definitely key as well, and watching Raylan grow up right now in front of our eyes, and him learning what he's learned, I guess, is definitely very important. It keeps us here. But we came here, like I said, we tried pretty much every church here, and this is the church we fell in love with. So
cool. I did not know that about Ben. So you can use every part of your life to be a witness and invite people to church, even using lawn care service. So man, good job, Ben Moffitt and Moffitt family. That's awesome. Gloria, thinking about your history here, you and Joe being here, and you can kind of tell us how long you've been here in just a moment, but a lot of things that have happened during your time here. What's your fondest memory?
I think probably the fondest memories, and I was thinking about this weekend, is I don't know, just they were talking about visitation and stuff, and I guess that's what got me to hospitality, to where I am now, because I think visitation was always huge here. I know that it's not the way it is right now. I know we've gotten away from that because nobody wants you to come in their door and all this stuff, but that was so huge then. And going out and seeing other people, knocking on doors, and I mean, there was times when on Sunday, if you walked into this church, I'd almost beat you to your front door on Sunday morning trying to get to see you, take a little loaf of bread and just tell you how much we're glad you were here and stuff. And we actually had a night where we would actually, once a month, come together, have a little bite to eat, and then we would take off in cars, and it'd be like 25 of us, and we'd head out. I mean, to places like, and you guys have been in Powhatan, some of you live there, you got lost and you never got back, I understand that. But places, we'd go way out, but going around and visiting and just making friends with people and just inviting them. I mean, that was, and I know there's ways we can still do that now, but that was just huge. And I remember one time we went, I don't know if Sarah was with me, I had two young ladies, Becca and another lady, and we drove way out, like 25 miles to visit somebody. We got out there and there was no lights and nothing. And I said, girls, we're just not gonna be able to get out here because, it's dark and I'm by myself. And you girls, oh, but we gotta visit. We came all the way out here, we gotta visit. So I said, all right, well, let me see if they'll answer their phone. So I called and sure enough they answered and we went on in and visited. But that was a good time. It was good.
How about you, Rick? Can you think of some maybe key moment or a season in your time that you've been here, which I think is your whole life, but what's your fondest memories?
Fondest memories? It's just being part of the Gray Lane family. Everybody that's in this church is part of my family. I mean, not only church family, but we get along just like family.
Yeah.
And that's one of my best things that I recall about the church and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I come to this church when I was young. My dad always made sure that we came almost every Sunday. And then after I graduated high school, I didn't come as often as I did. But I came back after I got married and had kids and everything. So I've been coming here for a pretty long time. It's hard to think that my great-great-grandfather and my great-grandfather and my grandfather and my dad are all buried outside in the graveyard.
Wow.
That don't mean nothing, but it just means that when we find a good church, that's where we're going to stay. Yeah. We're not going nowhere else. So now my son and his family, my daughter and her family, they are also going here, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah.
When they come like that.
So is that 4 generations that's buried out there currently, or will it be 4 with you?
Great.
When it's your time, of course. We're not rushing you on that.
I can't count that high.
You said great-grandfather, great, and then your grandfather.
My
and then your dad.
great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad.
So that's 4.
Was
You'd
that
be
4?
5. Yeah, it'd
I'd
be 4.
5. So
Then in Ricky's time, it'll be 6.
I'm not in any hurry to join them, but I will when the time comes.
I know it's getting pretty tight out there right now.
It's getting tight.
Sarah, how about you? I know you and your family have been in the church since maybe the 80s, somewhere in that neighborhood?
The early 90s.
Early 90s.
I think
okay.
I thought about it today. Since I was 5 years old, so 1993. So
Thank you for making all of us feel old up here.
You're welcome. But yeah, we obviously, part of the appeal of this church was the close proximity to home. And I had a neighbor that would take me and my friend Jennifer Bailey to Awana's on Sunday nights. And I think John's and Dad and Mom, talked about this church, and we had been visiting several churches, I remember, and we came here and we've been here ever since.
Kind of seems to be a theme when everybody begins to tell your story that the reason you came is because someone invited you, right? I mean, it seems like that's pretty much everyone's story here is they've been invited by someone else. And I think it's true of what we see in those who come to our church today is that they come because someone gave them a personal invitation, stopped by, picked them up, or came by and said, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. By the way, do you have a church home? And that's how they get connected. That's pretty cool to see that. Yeah, you want to add to that? Because I was going to you next.
Okay. Well, we've been here for 11 years now, and I will have to say, I don't know that anybody actually invited me to Red Lane, but I knew that Red Lane and Old Powhatan and our church, in our area were part of our convention, and so when we relocated, Red Lane was one that we came to. And I've got to tell you, we talk about historical folks who did outreach, but sitting on this platform is Tommy Mann, who welcomed us with open arms like the very first Sunday, Gloria likewise, and also Jewel, for instance. And so I will say, because of their hospitality, it caused us to come back. The glue that kept us, however, and you'll like this, was Sunday school in small groups. And because that's where you become family, and that's where you share life together. And the preaching was okay too, but well, you weren't the preacher, so I'm doing fine. So
Don't blame it on me.
Yeah. It's still okay. Yeah, that's right. Thanks for that one. But what was the question?
I haven't asked it yet.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
But what are some things you've seen the Lord do in and through the church in your 11 years here?
Okay. Oh, I forgot my favorite time, my favorite memory. It's John's Bailey's fish fries. Yeah. And maybe Christmas Eve. Special services are always good. All right, now back to the question.
Yeah, what are some things you've seen the Lord do through the church, in the church, in your 11 years?
Yeah, well, let me go back and say, it is a Bible-believing and preaching church that stands on the Word. So that's first and foremost. But to be a part of this church and to watch, in the 11 years that we've been here, the people that have been sent out to be missionaries, career missionaries, or just doing missions in the community, to me, that is evidence of lives that are transformed. And so it's not about just receiving the Word and receiving information, but it's about transformation that we see happening in the lives of people. I'll stop.
Tommy, would you like to add anything to that and all of your years?
Well, I hope we on. Are we on? Yes, we're on. Okay. I think through the years, of course, to see the church grow in missions, that is, being raised an old country boy in an old country church. And a lot of you out there know what I'm talking about. You're just as old as I am. But to see, to reach out and to, I'd never had the opportunity to go to Venezuela or Peru. I know Kay went to Peru, and Gloria, of course, has been to Venezuela and other places. But to see, to take 150 and 175 people to Norfolk for 4 summers in a row, and to see the Lord work, and it wasn't in the best of circumstances. Some of those churches that you went to, in the areas you went to, you were constantly looking over your shoulder to see if nobody was behind you to get into the church. And sadly, some of those churches that we have worked with are no longer churches because of the areas they were in. But hopefully that what we did those summers have planted a seed in some of those people, and that it is growing in them. But just to see the church grow in missions is just, and how many couples have we sent out from our church into Dave and Susan and Rick and Eric and Anissa, and then there was another couple in somewhere. Allison, right? Allison is over in the Mideast now, but just to see that and to think that we had an impact that turned their hearts to be missionaries. I think that's just a wonderful example of what we've done.
Yeah. And Nancy, the mission emphasis as far as sending, that started under Pastor Slayton, is that right?
Yes, when Pastor Slayton came, he told us, I was on the committee, the pastor search committee, and one thing he asked us was about missions in our church. And at that time, Tommy, we didn't have mission trips or anything. And so Gloria was on that same committee. And but we told him we wanted to update our missions. And that, I think, is when our church started to flourish. When we had the missions, people became involved. And like Tommy said, we had all those people going out to Norfolk and different places doing Bible schools, and the young people were involved. And that, I think, was when our church really began to flourish.
That's good. So the church began to grow, and I think under Pastor Slade, maybe he got up to somewhere around 300 in worship. That's what I've seen as I've looked back. So that's pretty big deal, because the county this is not a large community, right? I think right now, I saw the latest statistics that we've now exceeded 30,000 in our county. When I came 6 years ago, it was still low 28,000. And so that's pretty significant to have 300 people in worship on a regular Sunday. And so things have changed in the community, right, Rick?
Yes, sir.
How have you seen things change here within our community? Not just our church, but like what has changed in Powhatan as far as just the culture, population, whatever comes to my mind, comes to your mind?
I think back in the 60s and stuff, Powhatan was a lot smaller, and people were doing a whole lot more farming than what they're doing now, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But the church has always been a strong thing for everybody in my household. You know, we always thought that it was important to come to church, and when I was coming, it was important to always wear your best clothes, maybe. But now I think that's changed a little bit. I see people with flip-flops on, which ain't nothing wrong with that, and shorts and stuff like that. But as long as you come to church, that's all that matters. But back in the day, everybody had a tie on. The men had ties on. The women always had on the dress and everything. And of course, you know, times change.
Can I borrow your tie tomorrow? Thank you. Gloria, you mentioned, kind of same question, but you mentioned that just maybe 10 years ago, the church had the outreach for the church was going door to door. It was going out, knocking on the door, and that culturally has changed. We could do that, and we probably could be somewhat successful, but tell us how you've seen maybe the culture of Powhatan change, or just in general, and just some things that you've seen shift.
Well, I think we started doing, we realized as Tommy and Rick, we had to go beyond the doors. We've always kind of been a visiting church and going out, but we had to go beyond the doors, because as James said, we have to invite people. So, I think for us, we began to do some bigger events, which we still do with the Harvest Festival, the Easter event. And I remember one year when Pastor Slayton had left, and he told us when he came, he said, "I'll come be your pastor, but I'm going to Norfolk with the church I'm coming from, and you can go with me if you want." So that was like the beginning of, let's go out, let's do this. But at that time, we had to be creative about other ideas and how we were going to do this. So when he left, we thought, okay, what do we do now? Do we go back to Norfolk, or what do we do? Because this was who we were now. We were a missions-minded church going out and sending teams. We'd been even to international missions at this point, so we knew what to do. So we had a lot of members here who felt like that we needed to do something in the community, that, this was their community, this church sat here, and they need to be recognized that this was, a place for them to come. So we did I don't know what it was, like a missions emphasis, and we did all kinds of stuff in the community that week. And we went out and we did building, and we did road cleanup, and we set up for people to stop and have breakfast on their way to work in the mornings. And I don't know, we did VBSs in parks and all that kind of stuff. So I think the community is, and I know that we've also gone as far now as, like Brad said, going with other churches and trying to do events and letting people know we're here. But we have to go out into the community. People are not just going to step in the doors anymore. They don't want to do church like we know church. And so we've got to figure out how to do that. And I know Pastor's going to talk about that as we move forward and stuff, but it's got to be different.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
I think we all know that as time moves forward, things change. And so culture changes, the way people think change. So what you see, if you look back over at our history of 175 years, Red Lane has had to adapt to the culture that it found itself in at the time. And so, Rick, you're talking about earlier how it was much more agriculture just back 4 decades ago. Yeah. Now we still have agriculture, but we have so many other things. A lot of that old farm ground is now subdivisions.
That's right.
And more likely that's going to continue. And so, as we look forward, and tomorrow we're going to put a big emphasis on looking to the future, we have to adapt to the hand that we are being dealt. And it's going to be really neat to see what's going to happen in the next 50 to 75 years here in Powhatan, and what our church will do to continue to reach people.
One thing I've seen that also that during the last couple of years with all this COVID stuff, a lot of people are watching church from online. They're not coming back to church, like for whatever the reason.
Yeah.
They don't feel safe, or it's just easier for them to stay at home and watch it online. But that's not the same thing at all to me.
No,
you got to be here in church.
That's definitely changed everything. And so, for us as a church, our elders, we talk about this quite often, how online church is good. It's a good tool to use, but it can't be in lieu of or in place of being with the body of Christ. And so I like how you put that into perspective there. James, kind of shifting the conversation just a little bit, when you think of Red Lane, what are just maybe 2 or 3 descriptive words that come to your mind?
I think friendly would definitely be one. I know as soon as we walked in, we felt, everyone's kind, felt like home. Let's see here. Really can't think of 3. I mean, friendly, and just, I know when we were here, I guess truth would be another one. I felt like when we came here, like every time we heard your passage or your messages on Sunday, it was 100% the truth. It's always what the Word has to say. So so that definitely comes to mind as well. And also I think just home. Like when I think of coming here, like this is my family. This is where I belong. Like these are the people that I like being with. Are the people like I want my kids to be around right now and have them grow up. This is family, 100% family. So for me, it's just family. It's kindness. It's friendliness. Everything that kind of revolves around that for me. So it's there's not one person here that I don't think go out of their way to help you out if there was ever a need. And then also just I think about go back to the question of your fondest memory. Like some of my fondest memories here are really watching the kids learn about Christ. Like I still remember my first time volunteering for sports camp. I was out there helping with basketball, but to see the amount of kids just fill this room here and just show that love of Christ and share that passion. It's not just kids from Red Lane, but it's kids from all over the community. So that's why I think this is home. This is where we need to be and come together as one and worship God as one. So for me, it's definitely home, and it's like I said, everything that comes with that.
That's good. I like it. Sarah, how about you?
100% family. Like this has always been family to me. And you love your family, sometimes not so much. There's growing pains, there is. But at the end of the day, you love your family, and family is what keeps you here. And God uses family to send you out or to, keep you on your toes or, I don't know. It's just family, and it is home, and it always has been.
That's good. Anyone else want to jump in on that? How would you describe?
I know you're looking at me. I would say it's a church with vision and purpose. And I think as we look in my 11 years in the different pastorates and leadership, there's a difference between purpose and preference. If our purpose is to study God's Word and to do God's Word, and we're standing firm on the foundation of Jesus Christ, then my preference is not important. but God's purpose is important. And I think we are purpose-driven as opposed to preference-driven. I mean, people will leave church because of their preference, but they didn't leave because we weren't standing on the Word.
Yeah, anytime, the preference thing, I'm going to play on that for just a minute. Anytime you change things in a church, you always ruffle feathers. You all ever experienced that? Yeah, of course you have. So I remember Nancy was on the search team that brought me here, and Jan, Steve's wife, was on that team. No one else was on this, right? You weren't on it? No. We went. So
You'd have still been in Arkansas.
I appreciate that, man.
We love you, Pastor.
So love is not one of those descriptive words, is that right? I just remember sitting down with the search team, because back then the church had two different services, not from a space issue, but it was a preference. It was a contemporary and it was like a traditional service from a music standpoint. And I just told the search team, I was like, my philosophy of ministry doesn't coincide with that. I see that as a preference-driven thing. It's sort of an a la carte, I want it my way type of approach. And so I basically said, one of the first things that I will try to lead to change when I come here is we will go from 2 services to 1, and that will be a blend. It will be multi-generational and all of that. And when the time comes where we need the space, then we'll go to multiple services. And so I remember back 6 years ago, this would have been like week 2 of my pastorate here, and it was already getting a little dicey with some folks because the worship service had changed, and it actually had changed 3 weeks before I came. To try to get that ball moving. And so preference is hard. All of us have our preferences, and change comes hard for all of us. I'm a very habitual person, just like everyone else. And so I like how you pointed out that purpose is really what matters there. So descriptive words about who we are, how we think about ourselves. What about the community? Nancy, I'm going to direct this to you first. What's the reputation of Red Lane in our community?
Well, I think it's a good reputation. I think we are well known to be a friendly church. I had a funny incident, well, it wasn't funny, but it is now when I look back on it, but I was in a restaurant having lunch with a group of people, and they were talking about different churches and things, and somebody asked me what church I went to, and I said, I go to Red Lane. And they said, well, how do you like it? And I said, well, I've been there for 70 years. I guess I like it pretty good. But they said, well, some lady told us that she came to Red Lane, and she came in and sat down, and not the first person ever spoke to her. And I said, well, she didn't come to Red Lane because there's no way that anybody can come in that door and not be spoken to. And as time went on and I questioned her, come find out it wasn't Red Lane at all. It was another church.
We're not going to call that church, right? We're not going to.
So I hear good things about our church, and especially during the pandemic. We opened, I think, in May.
Yeah, first day we could.
And no church was open for months. And when they would say, I would say something about the service Sunday and how good the music was and all, how we were enjoying it. And they said, you mean your church is open? And I said, well, we've been open since May. And I said, aren't you open? No, several, they did not open their church at all. And I think our church is a friendly, caring church and a worshipful church. I think people enjoy the worship part of our church, not just the small groups.
James, can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
So last Sunday, we had a new couple visiting, and Stephanie told me, she said, there's a couple sitting back there, because we kind of tag team when I'm here, like, I'll get them, you get them. So we were tag teaming, and she had already given them a bag and stuff, and so I just went over. The service was getting ready to start, so I didn't have much time, so I spoke real quick and just welcomed them there, and they're just like, kind of like, who is this lady? Get her back, terrifying eyes all over their face. And I thought, okay, you got to back off some here, But actually, when we stepped out after the service, I was at the front door. We stepped out, and they came on out through the front door. I asked them about staying. We had a great conversation out there. So I do hope, like Nancy said, I can't think of any other word, and like James, but friendly, family. I mean, if you come in here, you're going to be loved on by everybody, not just the hospitality team.
Yeah, that's good. So I think what we've heard from our panel tonight is they were invited, someone in their family was invited to our church, and that's how they got connected. I think it's probably most of our stories. They've been in service in our church. They've volunteered in some capacity, and it's been a blessing, and they've been mentored in that, and they've grown. We've talked about missions and how that's been such a catalyst for our church to kind of not just do things that we've never done before, but really be a church that's reaching our community. It's amazing how when you begin to focus on others, even going to nations, it enables you to focus on the neighbor next door to you. I think we can see that. You know, our church grew during Pastor Slayton's tenure as pastor and the emphasis he brought on missions. And so we want to obviously keep that going. We want to be a mission church. I think biblically, you're not a church you're not a New Testament church if you're not focused on lost people and making disciples here and there and taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so we want to always be a New Testament, Acts 1:8 type of church. We're about to enter a phase in our church history of renovating space. You've been around a while. Mm-hmm. You've said that. So I'm not saying you're old, but you've testified to that. You were here when they built this building originally, right? So the little white building that is in some of the pictures downstairs was right outside where the playground is now?
Right where the playground is, right.
Okay. And
it's hard to imagine that building could sit between this church and the
cemetery.
And the cemetery, right.
So it was pretty small.
In other words, they had to tear that building down before they put the side entrances on this building, because it was so close. Wow. They couldn't do the front and back side entrances until they tore the building down.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So you've been through that, and then in the '84 when this building burned.
And I see we have pictures of that on the screen.
On the slides, right. Yes. So that was an electrical fire, and then rebuilt, moved back in '85, and we haven't had an major update since then. Is that correct? In this room?
Not really, no.
Yeah, just been a few minor cosmetic stuff. So we're about to begin a pretty major phase in the life of our church. Question, Rick, I'm going to post it to you first. What ways do you see this newly renovated worship space, which is going to allow us to dedicate children's space downstairs, senior adult space behind us that's going to be accessible, where you don't have to go in and up and down a stair? How do you think that's going to help and foster greater ministry in the life of our church?
Well, I think that's going to be a big help because we got some of our older people up on the third floor. And it gets hard coming up and down them stairs for some of us.
Are you talking about yourself?
No, I'm not talking about me. some I think by doing that and by opening this area up right here, we can do a whole lot more stuff that we couldn't do earlier.
That's good.
So, and I think the children's area that we have downstairs, I guess that's going to continue to be downstairs, correct?
Yeah, we're going to move every adult class that's downstairs currently is going to be up on the main level or up on the third level, which will allow us to have all of the fellowship hall and all of that back hall dedicated for children's space.
Okay. I think by updating the facility that people outside the church are going to realize that we're trying to do stuff to increase the appeal of coming to this church so they can learn more about Christ and God and everything. So I think it's going to be a big help.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that?
I'd just like to say, even right now, look at the children's ministry that we have. When 30 to 35 children leave the sanctuary to go down for children's church and all every Sunday. I mean, and I think that with the enhancing the downstairs for them, it's going to be great. And that's where your future church is. It's downstairs with those kids. It's I think it's going to be great. Great, it really is.
I was just going to get back to the preference word because, you know, the thing of it is that the church is not the building, it's the people to begin with. So, you know, this might not be your preference either, but we're coming here, right? I didn't even know that this side panel is like a pink color compared to the white color. I mean, who wants to come to a pink church, right? But so it's not about preference. It's about, here again, purpose, and the church are the people. I'm excited about the building because I think this is the place that we worship, this is where we grow, this is where we are sent out from, and I think it's just good, just help that atmosphere to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too that we all know that like safety is a really big issue with parents nowadays. And so knowing that we can, and we did, I know when Susan and David were here, one of the big things that Susan always talked about was keeping her children safe and making sure they were in a safe place. And it was important to the parents to know that this is where their kids were. And we did a really good job back then of, I don't know how we did it, but we did it, of keeping the children kind of confined to an area. And I think getting back to that, being able to have that safe zone for the parents and knowing they can bring their kids and they're good, you know, so. And then again, like James, I think somebody alluded to, having this as a multi-purpose space where we can utilize it. I mean, we've had to have nights where we couldn't do VBS or something, or threw them in an area like this because we couldn't do anything because of the rain. So multi-use buildings are awesome.
I think that we have to keep up with the 20th century. It's almost, if you don't, it's like trying to ride a horse and buggy to work. Wonder how that would work today if everybody working had to ride in a horse and buggy because they wanted to keep things like they were. And I have feelings for the old church, you know, but I like what we're doing. And I think that the younger people that have come in our church with all these nice families, they came from places that were updated and had this wonderful worship time. And if we don't do it, we'll be left behind, you know. Your church will just die from it because you won't have the children to take our place. Somebody else is going to take our place, some of us sooner than others. But I would like to say, too, that I'm so proud of our children's department and the teachers that are teaching. The children who are downstairs know who Jesus is, and they know the stories of Jesus and who God is. And some of the little children that even go to school don't even know who Jesus is. So the children from Red Lane know who Jesus is, and I think that is important for the next generation, that this church will still be here 275 years from now.
I also think not only opening up this space here for a multi-purpose room, but also just the equipment that we're bringing in for sound. I know Ricky and I speak about it all the time when we're here pretty much every Monday, with band. We're just so much more excited when this happens. Like, you'll be able to actually hear all the instruments on stage. You'll be actually able to hear, each individual voice singing. So, and also the lighting that's going to be up here as well. We're not going to have just like the one light shining down on us. That's going to be, blinding. But the lighting's going to be so much better. So I think it's going to open everything up. Everything's going to sound so much better and also look so much more modern. Like Nancy said, I mean, we need to keep up with those times, and that's what people want to see as well. And I think that's going to open the doors up. And I personally feel like within the next few years, you're going to see tons of new memberships here at Red Lane, and I think it's just going to be an explosion. Like we hit on here, people are inviting everyone else, and when they start seeing a new building or seeing construction, a renovation going on, they're going to ask questions, and then if they see somebody, at Sheetz or Food Line, Walmart, and talk about church or whatever the case may be, they're going to ask about it, and they're going to want to come. You're going to invite them, and then you're going to see all that growth. So I think the sound and the lighting and pretty much everything is going to open it up. People will see it online. It's going to look so much nicer.
Well, and do we have to have all that stuff to have good preaching and to know that the word's being preached? No, we don't, because we've been to foreign countries and we sit on the dirt floor and we learn Jesus, and we've heard some great sermons sitting on a dirt floor in Peru, Venezuela, different places. But like James said, it's what people come in. I mean, you go to a new place, a new restaurant, a new building, a new salon or whatever, and you go, wow, this looks great, and it is appealing. And so you do have, as James said, what do we see different in the community now? We need those changes because of what we have in the community now.
I think what we're talking about here is it's a tool. We use tools. And so the facility is nothing more than a tool. The church is the people. I think someone up here said that a while ago. Maybe Steve said that. Church is the people, and this people has been together for 175 years. And this church has used different techniques to reach people with the gospel and make disciples, and we're going to continue to do that. And as we move forward, our tools are going to change, but the gospel never will. So anything else y'all want to add to anything?
I was gonna say that, I grew up in this sanctuary, or this church, the way it looks right now for the most part. And it holds a lot of fond memories for me, but that's what they are, they're memories. And in order for the next generation to make memories, we have to update. And that's exciting, that they're going to have these wonderful memories that they will carry with them for the rest of their life in this building.
Yeah.
Maybe not the way it looks now, but
Yeah.
that we get to help them make those memories, and we get to share the love of Jesus with them.
As we finish up, you want to say
I
something?
want to say something. You've got to update, you can't stay the same. You got to change and increase the values of the church and the appearance of it and everything. Tommy can back me up on this, I think, but back in the day, there was an outhouse back behind the church. And what if we still had that same outhouse? You got to change
stinky.
and increase, yeah.
It would be crowded.
I want to add one other thought that I thought about before I come up here. Back in the day when I was around, I'm thinking 12 years old or something, Tommy had a program called the Royal Ambassadors, and RAs would come, RAs, and that was such a good program that we learned everything about the Bible and everything at that time.
Yeah.
And we had the little patches that had RAs on it. I still got that at the house somewhere. So that was some good, exciting days back in that time.
Let me expand on what Rick. I can remember one year on RE, we had an overnight camping trip down on the farm, down on the creek, and we had hiked for about 3 or 4 miles that afternoon. And so we wound up down on the creek, and we had a chimney down there to cook stuff on, and the boys pitched their tents and everything. And the next morning, I can remember, I think it was David Harris, he was with us at that time, knocked on Mom and Dad's door and said, "Do y'all have any more bacon and eggs left?" And they said, "Why?" I said, "Well, we've already gone through 3 pounds of bacon and 4 dozen eggs, and those boys are hungry. Can you, sir, give us any more bacon and eggs?" And that was
I remember that.
Yeah. And so I said, "Well, my golly, Dave. Well, when you eat outside, you can eat more anyway." That's true. That's the reason we're feeding you downstairs today, so we didn't want but I can remember that. That was a good memory to see it was about 10 or 12 boys at least, yeah.
At least that many.
To see those boys down there doing that, so it was great. It was fun. And going back to the old days, as Rick says, when the population of the county was 5,000 or 6,000. And 1,300 of those are the guys they counted in State Farm. Yeah. And that's the truth. They were included in our population count. So that's how much the county has grown.
Wow. That is. We have a prison ministry back there. We piped it in with a TV or something.
TV? What was TV?
All right. Well, this has been good. I hope this has been good to bring back good memories and exciting to hear how the church has grown, the county's changed, and really we've also kind of ended on a crescendo of looking forward, looking to the future. And it's good to look back, but it's really good to be able to look forward with hope and with confidence that things are going to continue to progress and do much for the glory of God. So I thank you all for being here this evening, and I'm going to just dismiss you all. And Ricky, I think we're going to sing one more song.